Have you ever wondered if the vegetables you eat every day could actually be putting your health at risk? Most people think eating vegetables is always a good thing, and for the most part it is. But if you're over 60, there are certain vegetables that could do more harm than good, especially when it comes to your heart and brain. These are the kinds of foods that can quietly raise your blood pressure and thicken your blood vessels, the very things that make a stroke more likely to happen. And the worst part, you might be eating them almost every day without realizing it. If you've noticed your blood pressure creeping up or your doctor warning you about circulation issues, you're not alone. Millions of older adults deal with the same concern, often while thinking they're doing everything right. Eating healthy foods, staying active, and avoiding junk. But the truth is, not every vegetable is good for you in large amounts, and some can be downright dangerous if you're past 60. In this video, I'll walk you through the vegetables that can raise your stroke risk faster than you think, sometimes even overnight. These aren't exotic or rare foods, they're common items found in most kitchens. I'll explain exactly what makes them risky, how they affect your body, and what you can do instead to stay safe while still eating a balanced diet. Before we get started, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and whether you've noticed any changes in your blood pressure lately. Your experience could help someone else spot the same warning signs before it's too late. Number 1, pickled vegetables. Pickled vegetables are everywhere. They smell strong, taste sharp, and sit in jars with a long shelf life. For people over 60, that jar can be a hidden danger. The main issue is salt. Pickling preserves food by using brine, lots of salt. That high sodium content can push up blood pressure quickly. In someone whose blood pressure is already on the higher side, a single salty meal can cause a rapid spike. Over time, repeated spikes raise the chance of a stroke. One large study that looked at preserved vegetable consumption found a link with higher risk of hemorrhagic stroke and higher death rates from that type of stroke. Salt makes the body hold extra water. More water means a higher volume of blood. That increases pressure inside blood vessels. In older adults, arteries are often stiffer and less able to handle sudden pressure rises. When pressure climbs, small vessel walls can break or leak. That is the mechanism for hemorrhagic stroke. Even a single meal very high in sodium can have immediate effects on blood pressure. Doctors often warn people with salt-sensitive blood pressure to avoid heavy salt foods, and pickled veg is near the top of that list. Pickled vegetables also carry an indirect risk. Many older adults take blood pressure medication. If that medication is calibrated for a moderate sodium diet, a sudden increase in sodium can blunt the drug's effect. The result, blood pressure control fails at the exact moment you need it. For people who have already had a stroke or who have heart disease, this is not theoretical, it is real risk. Public health data show that high dietary salt plays a big role in stroke statistics across populations. Another angle is that some pickled products are eaten with other high-risk items. Pickled fish, processed meats, salty cheeses. These paired foods multiply the sodium dose. Eating a heavy, salty meal late at night can produce measurable blood pressure elevation by morning. For someone over 60 whose blood vessels have accumulated wear, that elevation can trigger a critical event. If you are on a salt-reducing plan, a single jar of pickles can undo a week of careful eating. If you take medicines for heart rhythm or blood pressure or have known carotid disease, think of pickles like a short-term test of your cardiovascular stability. Avoid eating a jar in one sitting. Choose low-sodium preparations, rinse canned pickles under water, or better, eat fresh vegetables with lemon instead. For older adults, swapping pickled sides for fresh or steamed veg cuts sodium intake dramatically. Simple swaps reduce risk in measurable ways because sodium reduction lowers blood pressure numbers within days. Number 2, canned tomato products. Canned tomato sauce, bottled tomato soup, and jarred tomato paste are convenient. They also hide sodium. Manufacturers add salt for flavor and preservation. One serving can contain several hundred milligrams of sodium. If you pour tomato sauce over pasta and add a canned soup starter, a single meal can exceed 1,000 milligrams of sodium before you add anything else. For older adults, that level of sodium in one evening meal can cause a significant blood pressure rise overnight. High overnight blood pressure is a strong predictor of cardiovascular events, including stroke. Canned tomato products also concentrate minerals and other compounds. In most people, that is fine. But when tomatoes are processed with added salt, the sodium effect dominates health outcomes. The combination of salt plus convenience foods means older adults can go from a low-salt diet to a high-salt meal without noticing. That sudden swing in sodium intake is risky. Evidence linking high sodium intake and stroke shows that the ratio of sodium to potassium in the diet matters. Tomato cans often lack potassium-rich pairings that would balance the sodium. A high sodium to potassium ratio raises stroke risk independently of other factors. If you are over 60 and eat canned tomato products several times a week, the pattern matters. Habitual high intake keeps blood pressure elevated and worsens long-term vessel health. Observational data show that dietary patterns high in processed foods correlate with higher rates of stroke and cardiovascular disease in many populations. That link is not surprise. Processed tomato products are a common element in those patterns. If you cook with them, choose low-sodium versions or drain and rinse when possible. Adding fresh herbs, garlic, and lemon reduces the need for extra salt. Number 3, fried potatoes, French fries, chips. Potatoes themselves are not the enemy. How they are prepared can be. Fried potatoes, French fries, chips, deep-fried wedges carry two main risks: high fat from frying and high salt from seasoning. When fried foods are consumed often, observational studies show links to higher rates of type 2 diabetes and higher overall mortality. One study found that consuming fried potatoes more than twice a week was associated with a rise in risk for death compared with lower consumption. Another large analysis linked frequent consumption of chips and fries to increased risk of diabetes, which in turn raises stroke risk over time. While total potato intake in boiled or baked form often shows no clear link to stroke, fried versions are different because of oil and added salt. The short-term mechanics matter. A very salty, greasy meal can raise blood pressure and induce inflammation. Fried foods often contain trans fats or oxidized fats if oils are reused. These fats raise triglycerides and impair blood vessel function. In the hours after a heavy fried meal, arteries can show reduced dilation. For older adults with already narrow or stiff arteries, that acute effect can tip the balance toward an event. Repeated exposure compounds the damage. Chronic inflammation, worse glucose control, and higher blood pressure all push stroke risk higher. Portion size is a key factor. A small serving of home-baked potato will not have the same effect as a large fast food order. But in many settings, older people get the large orders or eat fried sides frequently because they are convenient. Public health findings suggest that swapping fried potatoes for boiled or baked versions lowers risks tied to diabetes and mortality. That swap can lower long-term stroke risk because it improves metabolic health and reduces blood pressure variability. Salt is paired with frying in restaurant and processed versions. That turbocharges the problem. For older adults, limiting fried potato intake to rare treats and choosing home-cooked, lower-oil alternatives is a sensible step. If you must eat fries, skip the extra salt and pair them with a high-potassium vegetable or an unprocessed salad, which helps blunt sodium's effect. Over time, small choices like that add up. They change the balance between controlled blood pressure and risky spikes. Number 4, spinach and kale. Spinach and kale are nutrient-dense. They are packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber, and antioxidants. For most older adults, these greens are heart-healthy. But there are two situations where spinach and kale can raise short-term stroke risk. The first is interaction with certain anticoagulant drugs. Leafy greens are rich in vitamin K. Vitamin K helps blood clot. If you take warfarin, sudden increases in vitamin K intake can reduce the drug's effect and raise your risk of forming a clot. A formed clot can travel and cause an ischemic stroke. Conversely, suddenly cutting vitamin K intake can make the drug too strong and cause bleeding risk. The clinical advice is consistent: keep vitamin K intake steady. If you change the amount of spinach or kale you eat a lot overnight, your anticoagulant dose may need adjustment. The second issue is large volume meals of greens eaten with sodium-rich dressings or pickled sides. People often pair salads with salted nuts, cheeses, or processed toppings. A large spinach salad topped with salty croutons and ham can deliver more sodium than you expect. Again, that sodium can raise blood pressure acutely. For older adults whose vascular system no longer buffers pressure well, this spike can contribute to stroke risk. The greens themselves are not the problem. It is what they are served with and how suddenly intake changes. There is also a practical note about green smoothies. Some older adults move quickly to blend large daily green smoothies with multiple handfuls of raw spinach and kale. If that sudden increase coincides with starting or adjusting anticoagulant therapy, it creates variability in vitamin K intake. Consistency is the goal. If you plan to add blended greens to your routine, tell your clinician. They can check clotting markers and adjust medication if needed. Otherwise, keep serving steady and balanced. Do not interpret this as a ban on greens. For older adults not taking warfarin, regular spinach and kale intake is linked to lower cardiovascular risk in many studies. Those benefits come from nutrients that support vessel health, lower inflammation, and help control blood sugar. The message here is targeted. If you are on anticoagulants, or if you pair greens with heavy, salty sides, be careful. Keep vitamin K intake steady and reduce added salt in the meal. That protects you from sudden shifts that can affect stroke risk. Number 5, beet greens. Beet greens and other leafy tops are often overlooked. They taste similar to other leafy greens and are high in nutrients. Like spinach and kale, beet greens contain vitamin K, so they affect anticoagulant drugs in the same way. Sudden increases can reduce drug effect and raise clot risk, while sudden drops can increase bleeding. That biochemical reality matters for older adults on warfarin or similar blood thinners. Maintaining a steady diet of vitamin K-rich greens is the simplest way to avoid dangerous swings. There is another point with beetroot products. Whole beets and beet juice are high in nitrates, which lower blood pressure in many people. That generally helps reduce stroke risk. But beet greens can be served in prepared dishes with added salt, fats, or preserved components. When beet greens are part of a salted processed mix, the sodium issue returns. For older adults, the preparation method is often the deciding factor. Fresh, steamed beet greens are different from a sauté in butter and salted preserved meats. The fresh preparation tends to lower blood pressure or have neutral effect. The salted, greasy preparation can do the opposite. Number 6, kimchi, sauerkraut, and other salt-fermented vegetables. Kimchi and sauerkraut are not a single food. They are a group of vegetables preserved in salt and allowed to ferment. That process produces beneficial bacteria, vitamins, and flavors. It also uses a lot of salt. For people over 60, that high salt load can turn a healthy-sounding side into a real risk factor for a stroke, and the risk can appear quickly, overnight, or within a few days, when sodium intake suddenly climbs. Web reports and nutrition references commonly list kimchi at roughly 400 to 600 milligrams of sodium per cup, and many canned or store-bought sauerkraut servings are similarly high. Eating even one typical serving of these preserved vegetables can deliver a substantial portion of the daily sodium limit. Why that matters right away: sodium raises blood pressure. The mechanism is simple and fast. Salt makes the body retain water, increasing blood volume. More volume raises pressure inside arteries. Older adults tend to have stiffer arteries that do not expand easily when pressure increases. That stiffness means a given rise in blood pressure produces more stress on small vessels in the brain. Those vessels can leak or burst, which causes hemorrhagic stroke, or they can respond with damage that promotes clot formation, which can cause ischemic stroke. Population health guidance links higher average sodium intake to higher rates of high blood pressure and to greater stroke burden. When someone who already has high blood pressure or fragile vascular health eats a very salty side like kimchi and then goes to bed, overnight blood pressure can remain elevated, and that raises the chance of an event by morning. There is nuance and counter evidence that matters. Fermented vegetables also show health benefits in many studies. They can lower cholesterol, help glucose control, and provide probiotics that reduce inflammation. Some population studies do not show a straightforward rise in hypertension in people who habitually eat kimchi, and benefits may be seen when sodium content is low or intake is steady. But those findings do not erase the core point. The salt content is variable across products and preparation methods, and sudden increases in sodium intake are what push risk up in older adults. In practice, store-bought versions and commercial preparations often carry the highest sodium per serving. If someone switches from a low-salt diet to several salty fermented servings in a short time, the short-term effect on blood pressure can be large enough to matter. Practical details that change risk right away. First, serving size. A single cup of kimchi can contain roughly 20 to 25% of a typical daily sodium recommendation. Many people eat kimchi as a condiment, but a few extra helpings or a heavy portion in a meal can push a single meal's sodium past 1,000 milligrams. Second, accompanying foods. Kimchi is often paired with rice, processed meats, soups, and other salted condiments. Those combinations multiply the sodium dose. Third, the individual's baseline. If you already have diagnosed hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, or you take blood pressure medications, a sudden salty meal can blunt medication effects and cause a dangerous surge. One clinical reality is that blood pressure drugs are calibrated to a typical diet. A one-night spike can put a patient outside the protected range those drugs provide. What to do tonight if you are over 60? Treat kimchi and sauerkraut as condiments, not main dishes. Read labels and aim for low-sodium versions where possible. If you have only regular sodium kimchi and want to use it, take a small spoon portion instead of a cup. Rinse canned sauerkraut under water before eating. Rinsing can drop sodium by nearly half in many canned vegetables. If you eat fermented vegetables regularly, keep the daily total steady rather than swinging from zero to large amounts in a short period. If you are on blood pressure medication or have a history of stroke, tell your clinician when you add these foods so they can monitor your blood pressure response. Those steps cut the immediate blood pressure spike that creates overnight risk. Number 7, canned mixed vegetables and canned corn/peas/carrots blends. Canned mixed vegetables look harmless. They are convenient, cheap, and shelf-stable. But convenience often comes with a hidden cost: salt. Many canned vegetable mixes are preserved with added sodium, and some come in salty broths or brines. One serving can carry several hundred milligrams of sodium, and a single bowl of canned vegetable soup or a plate of mixed vegetables from a can can easily contain a third of the recommended maximum daily sodium for older adults. That kind of single meal sodium load can push blood pressure up overnight. For people over 60 whose vascular resilience is lower, that overnight rise is not trivial. It raises stroke risk. The immediate physiology is the same as with fermented vegetables. Sodium retention increases blood volume and pressure. But canned vegetable mixes add 2 additional problems for older adults. First, people often eat the whole can, not a measured serving. The label serving size is smaller than most real-world portions. That means actual sodium intake is much higher than the number on a label looks like at a glance. Second, canned mixes can be eaten repeatedly across the day, as a side, then as part of a soup, then as part of a sauce, so the sodium adds up quickly. If you combine canned vegetables with other processed items, packaged sauces, sausages, canned soups, the total sodium for a day can exceed recommended limits many times over. That pattern is what drives population-level increases in blood pressure and stroke risk. There is a practical fix that reduces risk fast: drain and rinse. Public health sources show rinsing canned vegetables under running water can cut sodium by nearly half. That action lowers the immediate sodium load and reduces the overnight rise in blood pressure. Choosing no salt-added varieties or frozen vegetables also avoids the problem. Frozen vegetables usually contain little or no added sodium because they are preserved by freezing rather than brining. For an older adult, swapping a canned side for a frozen or fresh version removes a quick source of harmful sodium without changing meal patterns dramatically. A second risk with canned mixes is hidden additives. Many canned vegetable blends are sold in sauces or with added flavorings, including bouillon, stock, or cream. Those additives are often high in sodium and sometimes contain monosodium glutamate or other preservatives that can mask how salty the dish really is. A shallow bowl of canned vegetable soup may look light, yet it can contain 700 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium per serving, more than a third of the ideal daily intake for someone with hypertension. For older adults who need strict control of sodium for blood pressure management, a single bowl at dinner can erase the benefit of a careful low-salt breakfast and lunch. Behavioral steps to reduce risk tonight. If you must use canned mixes, open the can, drain the liquid, and rinse the vegetables in a colander under running water for 30 to 60 seconds. Cook them with fresh herbs, lemon, garlic, and a small drizzle of healthy oil to add flavor without salt. When buying, prefer labels that say no salt added or low sodium. When dining out, avoid dishes described as in broth or seasoned unless the restaurant can list sodium content. Those small steps reduce the immediate spike in blood pressure and lower near-term stroke risk for older adults. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need this information. And before you go, make sure to watch the next video on your screen. It's all about the best vegetables that boost blood flow and keep your heart strong.